So welcome to our panel on project management career pathways. And this is part of our Designing Your Career workshop series, which we host several points throughout the year. So we are excited to get started with an agenda first. And our goals. So today we're really coming together to talk about and talk with project management professionals about their different career journeys and how they were successful in the job search process, what they wish they had known going into the project management profession. So this is really geared for people that are enrolled in a project management program or thinking about a project management program to get a sense of what it's like to really be on the job. So we're going to start with some brief introductions, then we've got a couple of panel questions, and then we will answer your questions at the very end.
All right. So thank you so much, Lauren, for kicking us off. My name is Brooke. I am also with Pathstream today, and I will be kicking us off with introductions and the first question. So Anne-Marie, if you wouldn't mind starting us off, could you go through an introduction and tell us the story of how you started in project management and how you knew it was something you wanted to pursue, and anything you can think of about breaking into the industry?
Well, thank you, Brooke. I'm Anne-Marie County, and I'm a project evaluator here at Pathstream in the Asana Project Management Program, and well, I guess I'll just go right into the story. I had about almost 15-20 years of IT administration and management experience. And the IT, after that amount of time, the IT groups were starting to they were starting to outsource the IT work at my employer, which was Harvard University. And so in order to stay where I was, I thought about it and I suggested to the management that, well, wouldn't we want to have some technical project management to figure out how best to outsource, what not to outsource, what to do with what we had, and so on. And they thought it was a good idea, and so did I, because I wanted to continue employment with Harvard. So I became a project manager kind of by default, or kind of by accident, I guess you could say. But it did seem to me that there had been a large growth of IT without very much thought given to it in the areas where I worked. And so this was a good opportunity to try to focus the IT work, to try to get it to be more applicable to what we did. I worked in a museum, and so we needed to really think about museums studies and museum systems that would help with the collections and so forth. So I became a project manager. At that time, we also got a lot of grants, and that was very good experience for me to work with NSF, primarily the Mellon Foundation, some other grants that came in to help us organize the collections. And so I worked with a lot of grants over the next 10 years of my project management employment there, and saw a lot of good things, saw a lot of bad things, saw a lot of success, and saw a lot of failure too. And that's one of the things that I'll just say quickly, is that failure isn't necessarily a bad thing in project management. I've come to realize you can learn an awful lot from failure, or from the project not going the way it was expected. And I think I learned a lot more from those experiences than I did from everything running smoothly. So I knew that it was the right thing to do for me. I had a very broad experience, a very broad education. And so I wasn't really a hardcore IT person. I was much more of a liberal arts kind of person. And so this project management really did appeal to me. So it's about 2 years into actually having the position, I decided maybe I ought to learn how to do this properly. So I got a certificate at University of Massachusetts Lowell, which was a PMI, which is a Project Management Institute standards group. It's an approved program. And I did that. I got a certificate in Scrum Master. So I learned more specifically about the Scrum methodology within project management. And so I worked with that. When the pandemic hit, I also had more than enough years to retire. So I did. And it was good for me and good for them, good for everybody. And I decided that what I really would like to do is teach project management. And so I've having a second act as EduTech teacher of project management. And I'm also a little bit kind of closing the barn doors after the horse has left, but I'm actually doing the study for the CAPM and PMP exams now, and which I think will help the students here, because I'm getting the experience that they're getting, that you're getting, trying to get these certificates, these standardized certificates. And so it's been an interesting journey. I'm very happy to talk about project management, particularly technical project management. And I'm glad to be here this evening with you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anne-Marie. I hope people are taking notes. I mean, I was just writing down some of the things you were talking about, and just sort of like cross-disciplinary. You're talking about IT, you work, at a museum. Like, there's so many things in there that are of interest, and you're talking about, the certification exams. And so I know our audience is going to be asking more questions. So thank you for kicking us off. So to pass the baton, Lisa, I'm wondering if you would introduce yourself and tell us your story.
Yeah, surely. Also, thank you so much for having us. It's like so cool to just get to talk to different people that are also looking into this field. So yeah, my name's Lisa. I just started in project management, like officially about 2 months ago over at UKG. I live in Boston, and UKG is like an HR software implementation company. And so now I manage engineers that are building implementation databases for different companies. And essentially the way I kind of found my way into it, it seems a lot similar to like AnneMaries Story. Like, I kind of fell into my position. I wasn't really looking a ton. I come from a clinical background I have my master's in clinical social work and worked in that field for about 5 years. And when the pandemic hit, I was pretty exhausted, and trying to do that work virtually became really hard and challenging. And so started to look into like different opportunities, and just through networking and my different people that I knew from my university over at Clemson, I landed a position with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to help them with all of their COVID screening and protocols across the Commonwealth for all of the schools. And so I started there kind of from the bottom, and I just made a good impression, and relationally really cared. My boss and I really got along really well. And so when she got promoted, she brought me along with her. And and then as we started to make our way through some of these different schools, there were a lot of everything with COVID was just so rushed as far as like an implementation mechanism, because of the need and the urgency to get kids back into school, that there were just lots of pockets and holes in the training and in the workflows and in the protocols. And so I kind of became the person that went from different schools to training people and managing people and helping them kind of figure out, okay, how are we going to make this work systematically so that it can actually last for the next full fiscal school year. And at that point, we didn't know how long we were going to be in those roles. So that's where I got my first taste of project management. I started to really become the person that was continuing the communication up the line. I was kind of your troubleshoot person. When there were problems, I would address them. And then that position, naturally, COVID kind of came into a dip, and this school year, the Commonwealth decided to not offer COVID testing. So, and it was always a contract position, so I knew it was going to be coming into a role of transition at some point in time. And so then I started to look around, and was just really, they had offered me some different positions to stay within the company that I was working with, but was just looking for something to kind of settle into for a while and to learn and to grow and to like really develop these skills. And so yeah, UKG gave me an offer, and so I've been with them for about 2 months now, and it's wonderful. I'm obsessed with my job and love my people. So yeah, I kind of, yeah, I would definitely was not something that I was like looking into at the beginning. I remember when I walked away from clinical social work, I was like, how on earth am I going to translate any of these skills into anything that's marketable? And felt very just like hope for the best, and especially in the job market that we're in right now. And we were at that point. So yeah, just very grateful. I learned a ton, and I'm sure we'll get into more of it, but I think the certificate was just a great opportunity to dip our toes in. So that's me.
Thank you, Lisa. And again, like taking notes here, I think that there's a lot for our audience, to be curious about, and coming into your career or coming into project management sort of recently. And, I mean, there are definitely, it's such a, topical story, and thinking in general about a career transition and how am I going to take these skills into a new career, I think is really top of mind for a lot of people. So I can't wait to get into it some more. Thank you.
Thanks.
So next, Camila, would you introduce yourself and tell us about how you got into project management?
Of course. Hi, everyone. I'm Camila Cole. I currently work as a project evaluator here at Pathstream, but I also work as an executive director of administration at a university. And so I feel like my path may be a little different, which is great. I think that's the beauty of this panel, is that we all have such different paths, but we all sort of are geeked out about project management. And so, in my career, I'm older than probably a lot of the other students, but it wasn't really, project management wasn't quite what it is back when I first started working. And so I had various jobs. I was an office manager. I was a paralegal. I worked in the fashion industry. And so, just taking all the different skills that I've learned, to be a project manager, you have to have organization. You have to be able to communicate well with your team, these negotiation skills and time management. All of that really comes into play. And so it's really just sort of looking back in your work history and finding out, what have I done? How can I translate these skills, and then pouring it back into project management. And so that's kind of why I love it, is, being able to use the skills that I already have and create a really smooth looking pipeline to execute a project.
Yes, and I'm loving all the experience that folks are bringing today. When you said fashion, I was like, oh, I want to hear more about that. But just this overall theme of how you can bring like the patina, the things that you already know how to do to project management and be successful, I think is a great theme to pick up on. So handing the baton, Randy, could you introduce yourself and talk about your journey, please?
Sure. So my name's Randy Kruger. I'm actually an IT program manager, so it's a small step above project management, and I say that half jokingly. I manage multiple projects all together under a program to make them more efficient and effective. So it's a little higher level, little more looking into the strategic part of it. But as far as how I ended up in project management, much like what you'll hear with the rest of the panel today, it's 100% an accident. Most of us fall into it. We don't actually intend to go into it. So the fact that you're here and knowing that this is an option for a career path and you can willingly choose it is always a beneficial thing, because I think you're going to have a much better time with it. I initially, when I got out of school 100 years ago, thought I would be an HR manager. Anybody who knows me will know that is not a position that would be well suited for somebody like me. I went into social services for a while. I worked in renewables, did manufacturing, was all over the place really. And then I was offered an IT project program manager position and said, okay, well, why not? Let me try this. Turns out I can do it pretty well. I'm definitely not the best project manager or program manager in the world, always looking to improve. And that's the nice thing about this industry is you will never be, the top of the line. You will always have opportunities to improve. So that's something that kind of attracted me to the field. But what I think you should take away from today's session is that no matter what you are doing, no matter where you are, I was in education, I was in social services, I was in manufacturing for renewables for a while. No matter where you come from, you were probably either working on a project or leading a project. Anytime you're changing something in the environment, streamlining something, improving something, decreasing the probability of a bad thing happening, any of those things actually do count as projects. And so one thing I want to highlight that I saw in the chat was, what if I don't have enough PM experience to go sit for the PMP? And I will just tell you that most of the people I talk with, they tend to have that experience. They just don't think of it in those terms. So don't be dissuaded by not having the job title. Think about what value you've brought to the organization and how you've helped that organization transform or move forward. So nice to be with you all this evening, and I'm looking forward to answering more of your questions.
Thank you, Randy. And I really appreciate how you rounded out the introductions. And also now you've got me thinking like, oh, I could do project management. I mean, I've got skills too. We all do. So next question here is about, a time that maybe you faced imposter syndrome. I will absolutely admit that it's something that I have dealt with, continue to deal with. I think we all face it at some point or another. And I was going to hand it over to Camila to get us started.
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to answer this one. So I've never had the title of project manager before, although that's literally what I do. So I think it's like a classic example of imposter syndrome. In certain areas of my life, I'm running events, right? So all of the planning that goes into events, that's a project management. So it may not be IT project managing, but we're running all sorts of different types of projects that again, focusing on the skills, right? It's focusing on the organization and the time management, the research skills and problem solving and all the things that go into project management. And so sometimes it's just taking a different look of things. So it's not necessarily that I'm an imposter, but it's recognizing the skills that I have and what I do bring to a company. Even though I'm not technically a project manager, I definitely am. Hopefully that helps answer the question.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting perspective that you don't literally have the title. So there can be a little bit of this feeling around that. And doing the work proves that, you are a project manager. So, yeah. Is there anyone that would like to comment on this?
I can certainly chime in here. I think, like I said, everybody kind of experiences it. And the reality is when you jump into a new job, and I've done that pretty recently, you're not going to be up to date. You are going to feel out of place. That's normal. If you feel comfortable going into a job, that's disconcerting. To me, that means you're not reaching your full potential. There should be this level of discomfort. With that being said, some of the ways you can help overcome that, and something that I've pushed for in several organizations that I've been with. So I've been with HPE, I've been with Dell, and now I'm with Juniper. One of the things I push for is you need to have a formal program to onboard people. It doesn't matter if they're, early to career, mid-career, or they're a very senior level person. They're not going to know everything going in. And the more context you provide that person, the more likely they are to be successful as they move up into the organization and start taking on their day job. So requesting context is one of the most important things. And I beat up my boss on it on a fairly regular basis. Hey, this is not something you at all cover. This is something we should absolutely cover with people, because we don't want people to step on those landmines. We don't want people to feel like they're out of place. And sometimes it also helps to find a buddy within the organization as well. Someone who can help mentor you, who can, answer questions. and you don't feel guilty, hitting them up on Teams or any other, avenue to communicate with them. So identifying those resources early, and again, getting context.
I really appreciate the perspective of like, if I don't know, if I feel like we need more context or I need more information, even if I'm feeling a little impostery, I'm going to do it because it's the right thing to do. There's nothing wrong with asking questions and, to do your job. So I think that makes a lot of sense. And finding, mentorship, finding, buddies at work so that someone that you feel safe with asking questions, because you're going to find that a lot of other people feel just like you, I think, in the imposter syndrome space. So
could I chime in quickly too? I have one thing to add.
oh, of course.
Just recently, I was speaking with a woman who's going into project management starting for the first time, and she was describing to me how fearful she was asking questions about things that she really didn't know too much about at this point. She's going to have a junior position. And so it's, anyway, so she's going into this position. And I remember thinking and telling her that even if you make a mistake, it's fine. Learn from the mistake. You might ask the wrong question at the wrong meeting, but for the most part, you're going to learn a lesson from it. And look at it that way. Don't hide in the corner someplace, because you won't get that much out of it. Now, that's not to say you should go, like the bull in the china shop, but I think that there is value to stretching yourself and to getting yourself in a position that's out of your comfort zone a little bit, and asking questions and becoming a little bit involved at a time, a little bit at a time, and you will learn a lot from those kinds of situations. So that's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you for, that direct example of this question, and totally agree with you. Flexing a little bit, going a little bit beyond what you think you can do. It's going to help you grow. It's going to impress your colleagues, your boss, and we all make mistakes, and it's okay as long as you grow and learn. And
Brooke, I had something I wanted to add as well.
Absolutely. So let me just take a beat here, Jazib, if you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself, and then please feel free to comment.
Yeah, apologies everyone, sorry I was a little late. I was struggling with Zoom. It's all part of the whole project management process and figuring things out, but I just got a little unlucky with it deciding to install updates. In any case, besides my work with PathStream on the project management certificate, I'm the chief operations officer of a software firm. I'm based out of the city of Lahore in Pakistan. And my exposure to project management is in the operational capacity of this company. So among other things I've done in this company, one of the main things I've done is when we were starting off our large scale services projects, I was very involved as a project manager, because I ultimately realized that to grow this company, I needed to understand it well and to be able to teach it to other people. With regards to imposter syndrome, I think one of the challenges I've always faced is I'm managing these teams of technical software engineers. And even though my background is engineering, it's not specifically software engineering. And the people I'm managing know a lot more than me about the technicalities and what they're trying to achieve. And the truth is, you have to realize that as a project manager, while there's certainly value to having domain knowledge and understanding the project and learning the technicalities as you go along, your area of expertise is not specifically the same as the engineers or whoever you're trying to manage. And the biggest value you add is that you are basically retaining lessons and learnings between projects. So when I see engineers making a decision on one, thinking about timing and estimate or thinking about the risks, I often give them examples from other projects I've managed. As a PM, I move between projects and have a bird's eye view of all of them. And I try to transfer the lessons, the risks, the planning, and the ideas between them. And ultimately, it's that I'm trying to coordinate everyone's ideas and find the best solution between them, rather than I know all the technicalities. But that doesn't mean you ignore the technicalities completely. And the more you learn about them on an ongoing basis as a PM, the better you are in adding your PM insights into the technicalities of the project. So that's one thing I'd share.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for being here despite having some technical difficulties. And just want to highlight that you made a really great point about not necessarily having domain knowledge. Yes, you are an engineer, but maybe you're not a software engineer, but you're managing software engineers, but that's not what you bring to what you need to bring to the table. It's the project management expertise that you're bringing to the table. And so you don't need to feel imposter syndrome about that. So moving on to our next question, what's one thing you wish you knew about breaking into project management? That you didn't know when you started. And I was going to ask Lisa to start us off.
Yeah, thanks so much, Brooke. This is such an interesting question too, because there's so much, like there's so many different angles to take on this. But when I was thinking about it, I think and I feel like this is a little redundant, but because you read it all over the place, but I really think that like project management as a role, as a need, like it's always going to make companies, it's always going to make like organizations more effective. So you can always take it into any industry that you want to take it. Because when you think about it, like a company's goal is to like make as much money with as little risk. And that is essentially our job. Like we are looking for loopholes, we're looking for roles of effectivity, we're looking for things to streamline processes. And we get to do that by kind of what Jazib was saying, right? Like we like watch this kind of happen over and over and over and over and over again. And eventually we start picking up on like, oh, this could be done this way, and it's actually quicker, and it's going to be easier and better on your workers or on your people. And so I think I read everywhere that PMs, like the role of project management as a career is like expected to grow by, I think it's something like 300% or something in the next like 30 years. Like it's about to like blow out of the water, because so much of our world is like, we're really moving into this like software space and all of these like engineering roles, and even like biopharmaceuticals, and like all of these different industries are looking to really pull what their gains are. And PMs just make it more effective when you have somebody with that bird's eye perspective and that lens. And so I was kind of surprised when I started my job search, just how many different industries across the board you could take your skills and your learning and market yourself and make a play for yourself. So I think that, and it kind of ties into like in that space, I feel like when I think about this, my biggest like piece of advice, I guess, or just things that I thought a lot about, is just not to jump for a role. I think often when you're making a transition for a career, you can feel a little, right, like kind of back to this imposter syndrome. You can feel like, well, I'm not like, I don't have the role of project manager, or I don't have all of these like perfect skills. But the reality is that you have done it. And so holding and kind of being patient and waiting for the right opportunity to align with you, I think is really important, because you can really do this across the board. Like I feel like I work for a software engineering company. I saw postings for higher ed for project managers, and I saw postings for like makeup, like Bare Minerals is looking for a project manager, and Netflix is looking for a project manager. So it's really just like across the board. The level of variety and like industry that you can find yourself in is something that I didn't expect or anticipate, and I'm really glad I found it, honestly.
Lisa, I'm as you're talking, I've got analogies going on in my head, and one of them was like football. Like the quarterback has to call the play. Somebody's got to sort of decide the organization, and
Right.
in some ways, that's what project managers are doing. You have all this talent, you got to organize the project, and someone's got to do that work.
Right. And then if you look at it, the reality is like any company that people come from where they're working on like a product or they're working on something and they don't have PMs like allocated, usually those staff are thoroughly, like they are working tirelessly. They're working way extra hard. And it's simply because they don't have somebody commanding the ship. So somebody usually ends up like kind of taking that role, but they're like, but not really, but really they are taking that role. And it's like, it's like we call it, me and one of my friends who's a PM with me, we call it's a dumpster fire. It's just like, it's an absolute madhouse, and we're just trying to get to the numbers that we need to hit. But once you put somebody in that role, it really just like, it just makes things more smoothly. And who doesn't want to work at a company where things run smoothly, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's all. Sorry.
No, that was amazing. Thank you. And I just want to sort of make room if anyone else wanted to comment on this before we moved on to the next question. But Lisa, you've given us a lot to think about.
Yeah, Brooke, I'd love to contribute.
Please.
Yeah. So guys, I think what I realized after kind of breaking into project management was that a lot of my ability to improve in project management really came down to soft skills. I think when you're starting out, the technicalities are really important. What you learn in a textbook manner, what you learn in the classroom is really important, understanding the basics and the trade-offs and the goals. But a lot of your day-to-day work, and particularly how much you can improve in project management, really comes down to a lot of soft skills that you get exposure to over time, such as how do you motivate your team members? How do you resolve their conflicts? How do you prioritize things? So a lot of that I feel is kind of inherent within the project management curriculums, but I feel like it should be pushed out a little to the forefront, and you should realize that a project manager definitely has a lot of technical skills and the ability to set goals and achieve them. But a lot of your success on the job will come in terms of your people skills, in terms of understanding how every project is different in terms of the skills of the people and what brings out the best in them. So the more you kind of reflect on that, the more you bring your team members to reflect on that, I think the more successful you can be in project management.
I think that's really great advice. You know, bringing it back to people skills. And now I'm thinking, to extend my analogy, it's like you're the quarterback, but also a little bit the coach. You have to think about, you know, how to bring out the best in people, to quote what you said. Thank you so much for that. So what is the best advice you received during your job search process, for project management roles? And I think I was going to go to Randy, if you would kick us off, please.
So it was best advice received beyond the grave, for lack of a better term. When I got into project management, there was this perception that you were working all the time and you were working tirelessly and you were essentially herding cats, is how we've heard it likened in the past. And I would just say that when you're a project manager, you really have to be very deliberate with your time. You're going to get invited to so many meetings. You're going to get invited to so many extras, you know, oh, be at this meeting, do this, do that. And the reality is, if you don't set firm boundaries, and you are not clear, and hey, you know, I have no problem working late, for example, but it's not going to be every night for 4 months. If you don't set those boundaries, you will burn out as a project manager. And I know somebody asked that question. I thought I would tackle that live because it kind of coincided with what I was going to say here. But the best thing I can say is you need to be very deliberate with your time. You need to make sure that when you are, you know, being deliberate with your time, that you build in opportunities to continue your education. Part of being a PMP is, you know, doing continuous education, or what we call professional development units. And that's a very important thing, because that gives you insight outside of your organization to what's actually happening in the industry. So building that time in, to take, you know, to go take your kids to school, for example, or, you know, to go exercise, you know, to go out and mountain bike, whatever it is you like to do, you need to build that time into your day. And so that was the best advice I received, because I've watched quite a few project managers, and I don't mean to take this in a very dark route, but they've died at their desks because they just work themselves into oblivion. And that's usually the older workers that I see do that, unfortunately. That will not happen with me. I had that happen. I watched my mom die in her seat. So that's the best advice I can give you, is be very deliberate with your time. do not stretch yourself so thin where you're stressed out. The pandemic kind of exacerbated that. I think we're all a little bit burned out at this point. If you're not, that's awesome. I need some of your coping skills, but a lot of us are. And so just be very cognizant of the time you spend and recognize this one thing, that project management is a very important job. There's definitely a lot of responsibility associated with it. But at the end of the day, no matter how wonderful the company you work for, they will replace you. So just be very aware, and you need to make sure that you take that into your career as well. Okay, so don't go into a company that's not going to mesh well with what you're looking for. If you're looking for, hey, I want to have an environment where mistakes are welcomed, where someone's going to be there to kind of catch me if I slip or fall, you need to look for those types of things. And so again, that's being deliberate in your career and being deliberate in your time, because you only have a certain amount of time to work. So you may as well work for a place that's going to support you and build you up and help you get to where you want to be. So sorry to take that such a dark route, but I think it's very important that people understand that any job has the potential to take energy out of you. Make sure you set appropriate boundaries.
I feel like that's just a mic drop moment. I mean, that's great universal advice. And just to echo, what you're saying, it is a really important role. And so a lot of people are going to be trying to get your attention, get your time, get you in meetings. And so going in, understanding that, you'll be more prepared than if you just get into a role and then all of a sudden you're trying to deal with all of this and wanting to do a good job, having an idea that you need to set appropriate boundaries for yourself, I think is just a really great piece of advice. So thank you. Is there anybody else on the panel that wants to weigh in on advice?
Well, I'll just I have a corollary to what Randy said, and also Jazib also mentioned this a little bit as well. And I think that a lot of kind of early on project managers, somehow we all thought we had to do it all. We had to know everything. In my case, I was coming from IT operations, so I had a very intimate knowledge of our IT systems, but I really didn't have to have that in order to be a good project manager. And in fact, in some ways, it didn't work out so well, because a server would go down and I'd jump into fixing it. But really, what I needed to do as a project manager is have people available and around me who could then do that, to have the right resources and the right people with the right skills in the right place is really what project management is about. It's not that I have to go in and fix the software glitch, and even if it's not IT, if it was healthcare, it's not like I need to be able to go in and take blood pressure and take blood from people. You have to be able to outsource, or not outsource. You need to be able to have the right people doing the right jobs, and also be able to step back and have that bird's eye view that Jazib was talking about, of the whole project, of what's going on and how best to allocate the resources that you have, or get new resources if you need them.
Yeah, thank you for that. And, my sense of it is that somebody that is going to be a project manager is going to want to manage all the details, and that may, as you mentioned, fixing a server might be within your capacity, but it might not be your role. So just defining boundaries, well-defined boundaries of what your role is, so that you don't burn yourself out, is super important. Yeah. Thank you. So finally, we have, what advice do you have for prospective and current PathStream students that are considering a career in project management or starting one for the first time? And I think we've gotten some amazing advice so far, but any other items that folks are thinking about potentially? And I'm going to start with Lisa on this one.
Yeah, I think Advice for prospective and current pastoring students who are considering a career in project management, starting one for the first time. I think it's really about just what interests you about project management. I think for me, one of the biggest things that I did before officially like taking the course and really making the shift was I just got together with different advisors and different PMs. Like, it's really interesting. I had no idea, but so many of us have like some level of education, and our college and universities will have like services available to alumni that you just don't really like explore or go into. And so looking into those avenues and getting to talk to people that were doing the job really helped me identify like why I was interested in it. For me, it really turned into kind of what Jazib was talking about earlier, was those soft skills. That's what really sold me on project management. I felt like I can, not to boast myself, but I was like, I'm a fairly intelligent individual. Like I can perform well. I never really have gotten bad performance reviews. And so I was like, I feel like I'm very adaptable, but I wanted to make sure that whatever I was investing my time into was going to be something that I could really see myself and my type of personality flourishing in. And PM, it really is that, right? Like it does go back to those like how are you with like relational building? Do you feel like a lot of at least for me, a lot of my job is managing like difficulties within my team, and so I need to be able to like have conversations with my people so that we can push our project forward and really get to our end goal. So I think, yeah, like talking to different people that are doing PM versus also like expands your horizons, right? I was maybe looking into also like higher education. So I met with some of them and just kind of creating a little bit of a bandwidth of like, okay, what does your day-to-day look like? What does this feel like? And yeah, I think for PMs, like if you're like really good at time management, budget, like deadlines, and like you like to be in control and running things forward, I think it's a really great match. And the other thing about PathStream that I will highlight that I personally loved was this specific program on its own has a very robust after your certificate piece that they offer that I didn't see with a lot of other programs, which is why I chose to do PathStreams. And it really, that's how I got my job. Like after I finished my certification with them, I ended up meeting with different people that helped me build my resume out. They helped me, like I did like mock interviews with them. I really learned how to like market myself, and more than anything, it built my confidence up too, which was really good for that imposter syndrome nonsense that we talked about earlier. So all of those things together, and then they just have really great, like there's like a Slack channel for like all different types of job postings. There's like all sorts of different features that you get access to that I would really encourage anybody that's looking into this program to really consider in your evaluation of what you want to do, because it's how I landed my job now, and I'm so grateful for it. So that's me.
Well, Lisa, I will say, on the team, from the team at PathStream, it does warm my heart to hear that you took a lot of value in, the things that you experienced through the program. And so thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate that.
Totally.
I'm hearing also, kick the tires on a job you might want. Talk to people that are doing the work that you're interested in. Look around and network. I feel like networking was a big piece of your success.
Totally. Absolutely.
Is there anyone else that would like to offer something? Anyone on the panel that would like to chime in?
Sure.
Sure.
If you don't mind, I'll make it quick. So what I would recommend is reach out to people who are in the industry or in jobs you're interested in. You'll find that with project managers, we are more than happy to blab about our experiences. In fact, you can't shut us up. Case in point, what I just did there. So reach out to those folks via LinkedIn, or if they're in your organization, and just sit down for an informational interview. just ask them questions about the job they do. Believe it or not, you will endear yourself to them. And when the time comes and they're looking for someone, you will end up being top of mind. So that is an easy way to start out into project management and ultimately endear yourself to those who are already in the industry and who might help you get your start.
I think that's awesome advice about sort of the networking piece and talking to people, because yeah, getting out there, becoming known is going to help build a network and build connections for you. And we are so glad that you said blab, but really appreciate you being willing to share.
Brooke, I'd love to add something here.
Sure.
Yeah. So one thing I'd encourage all of you at whatever stage you're looking to break into project management is to realize that really as a skill and a profession, it doesn't really exist in isolation. You can still bundle your skills and your desire to be a project manager with all your other skills. So if you have opportunities to be combining project management with any other skill, whether it's digital marketing, whether it's something specifically on the software or data science side, you'll find that lots of careers are really looking for people with multiple skills. There will be some days when you're wearing the hat of a project manager, others days when you're wearing the hat of a marketer. So companies are always looking for people with these multiple skills who find kind of patterns between them and can combine these skill sets, because that becomes more and more valuable the more senior you get. So when you are considering a career in project management and trying to break in, don't think about it in terms of just kind of presenting yourself as a dedicated project manager. Create your profile as a project manager who has all these other skills and highlight your strengths in all of them, because I feel that really maximizes your chance of breaking into an organization. And then once you're there, a lot of it is up to you to figure out where you can contribute best. And do you want to be specifically in a dedicated project management role, or do you want to be in a role where your project management skills make you better at doing certain other things? You can't know that in advance. And that's why the way to break into the company is to show them that you can really do a lot of different things and learn things very quickly.
Yeah. Thank you, Jazib. And I think that brings a lot of themes together. Like, everybody is bringing lots of skills to the table, and that's going to just enhance your profile going into being a project manager. You should not shy away from leveraging those skills. So just to provide some further information, if you're interested, you can check out Pathstream programs, pathstream.com/programs, and/or email us, enrollments@pathstream.com, if there are questions that we don't get to today. If you're thinking about the Pathstream program and you have other questions beyond the webinar today, feel free to reach out, please. We do have some other workshops coming up. So we have how to break into data analytics, October 19th, had a data technical interview, November 2nd, how to break into digital marketing, November 16th, how to break into a Salesforce career, November 30th. So if any of those topics interest you, please join.
Thank you so much, Brooke. So I've been monitoring the Q&A in the chat. We have had lots of really good questions. So thank you to our panelists who have chimed in there. I have two requests of our panel before we sign off. The one is that I would love it if you could put in an article, a book, a podcast, something that you really enjoy to listen to or read regarding project management. If you could put that in the chat, I know that our audience would appreciate that. So I'll give you a second to do that. And it has to do with one of the questions here. And then while you're doing that, I think there is one theme that's coming up in all of these questions that I'm seeing, which is, what do I do if I do not have any project management experience? How do I break in? And I would love to just go around and hear just one thing that you all would recommend. Kind of quick, simple, one thing for somebody without any formal experience in project management.
I can take this. I would say volunteer. There's always opportunities to learn. And, you know, I know it's a hard thing to do if you need a paycheck, but, you know, sometimes it's just as easy as helping out with a neighborhood event, or looking on LinkedIn for opportunities, because they're definitely out there, and there's always ways to get the skills that you need. And then, again, the path stream course is really great because you are learning the skills that you will need. And so I think that is also a really good way.
Lauren, I'm so sorry. Can you repeat that?
Yeah, sure. So what I'm seeing in the chat and through the Q&A is that there's like this kind of persistent question about what do I do if I don't have any project management experience, no formal experience, and I'm trying to change my career? What's one thing someone can do or should do?
I'd love to add something. So I think it's really what is now called the atomic habits, doing things little by little. So before you're ready to go full-time as a PM, you can start demonstrating some of the skills. So even if you're in a completely different role in an organization or wherever you're working, you can start mentoring people in some way, managing a process to train people, to hire people. It might not be a dedicated PM role, but once you start demonstrating that you can kind of outline a process, break it down into steps, and help keep track of them in a limited way, not only will you yourself be able to evaluate and get confidence and figure out whether this is the right thing for you, but you can show the stakeholders around you that this is something you have the potential to spend more time on. And then gradually, when you get to be in those positions to discuss this with your mentors or where you're applying for jobs, it would be a natural next step to be doing more project management based on the basic exposure you have.
I can go ahead and add my 2 cents here. So along the same lines, I believe that Lisa was indicating is volunteering, and one place that so desperately needs your help that they will practically throw themselves at you with joy if you volunteer with them is your local PMI chapter. A lot of the places I see listed on here have local PMI chapters. California's got so many of them I can't even begin to describe. Texas has quite a few of them. Anytime you can get a chance to volunteer there, again, you're going to get actual project management experience. You're going to rub elbows with people in the industry. But as another piece of advice, other than volunteering, right, is start looking at the value you've brought to the organization. What changes have you helped implement, whether you led them or you were just a part of them? That's where you need to start your focus. I see a lot of people with resumes. They'll put down their job duties. Nobody cares what job duties you did. And I'm not doing that to be mean. I'm doing that to make a point. You need to list what you accomplished. It's not enough, for example, and I'm just taking a janitorial role because it's easy to understand, right? Okay, I cleaned the cafeteria, for example. Okay, that's your job, but what were you successful in doing? Hey, I was able to streamline how I did those janitorial services and got it down from a 4-hour endeavor to a 30-minute endeavor. That's how you need to start thinking of things. What are things that you did that tweaked how your company works? How did you save them money? How did you, decrease the time spent in activities? Start thinking along those lines and start putting those in your resume. And that actually will make a difference because that's what people are looking for, what value you bring. So always think about what value have I brought to my organization and how can that value translate to this new organization or this new role that I'm looking at.
Yeah, I think my 2 cents goes very aligned with what you were just sharing, because I do feel like network, and have those conversations with people that you network with. I think like developing relationships with people that are in the industry and having conversations around, okay, like help me think about my experience and how do I start making these shifts from like, yeah, what are my duties versus what did I offer this company? Because for me, it was really hard to think about that on my own. Like I was like, I have no idea. But once I sat down with somebody that I gave them, like they gave me time to explain to them what I was doing, I felt confident enough in what they were telling me to trust that I could do this, because it's scary. Like it's scary to transition careers. So building up that confidence and having people that you can rub elbows with. And I have some of my best like relationships with my bosses right now. Like they're just such good humans. PMs across the board are just I feel like most of us are pretty naturally relational, empathetic, kind human beings. So don't think we find a lot of people that are not. So yeah, network, and then network some more, and go to your PMI local chapter.
Thank you, everybody. So we're coming up on time here. I want to just give a thank you to all of our panelists. This has been such an engaging session, so much in the chat, so much in the Q&A, and I really appreciate both our panelists for being here and the students that are on this call for being so engaged and so excited about this career, because it really just makes everyone feel motivated and excited to be here. So thank you, everybody. You will get a recording of this tomorrow. And we just so appreciate you staying with us late on a Wednesday evening, and we can't wait to hear from you all again. Thank you so much.